Hey, everybody out there in the health world, people of trying to be healthy. So excited to be with you again with Dr. Tom O'Bryan. And I have to tell you that I am super psyched about this topic and maybe a little scared. Tom, I must tell you that from what you've been telling me, this is some rather alarming information that people absolutely need to know. And today we're going to talk about plastics. We're going to talk about coffee cup lids. We're going to talk about Saran Wrap. We're going to talk about the water bottle. We're even going to talk about your bedroom set and how that can impact you in a really, really negative way, including how your bedroom set can help you gain weight. Now, that's pretty awesome. So it's a very, very, very strong lineup there. And obviously, most of us, I think, that are on the line don't really want to gain any weight. So that's a good thing. So, Tom, where do we even start with this whole conversation of plastics? I mean, the damage is ferocious, and most people have no idea, including
That's true. That's true. And the place to start is to remember that our main focus right now, my main focus in the message we're carrying out, is an understanding that autoimmune disease is the end stage of an autoimmune mechanism that's going on for years. It's going on for years, and eventually it turns into disease. And that autoimmune mechanisms are the primary underlying factor that contributes to almost all of our degenerative diseases. Cardiovascular disease, that's heart attacks and strokes, cancer, rheumatoid, MS, lupus, psoriasis. This autoimmune mechanism is going on for years. And none of us have known, and so we wait until, you go to the doctor for a physical, you get really scared. What's he going to say? You hope you don't have a disease. Well, but the disease, you don't wake up with a disease. It's building up for years. Now we understand these mechanisms that were there decades beforehand. Nobody gets Alzheimer's in their 60s or 70s. You get Alzheimer's in your 20s and 30s. And it just takes decades of slowly killing off brain cells, slowly killing them off, and then it's not so slow, it gets faster and faster and faster until you cross a threshold. Now here come the symptoms. So it's this end stage that we don't want to wait for. None of us want to wait for it. So if we can identify the earlier stages of the autoimmune mechanism, then we can slow down, arrest, or prevent the autoimmune disease. That's the big picture. That's the big kahuna picture that I hope and pray that everyone understands or will kind of wrestle with and ask questions. Write your questions down if you don't, quite have this one yet, because this is the foundation of how you get healthier and how you keep your kids healthy. This is the foundation. So is this mechanism. So now, with that in mind, what triggers the mechanism? So what is it that's like throwing the gasoline? What gasoline is it? Gasoline or kerosene being thrown on the fire that's causing this mechanism in the development of an autoimmune disease? What is it? So the next point, and I've said this one before, it was the World Wildlife Fund that came out about three and a half months ago now, in conjunction with 2 universities. They published a paper that showed that there has been, on average, a 57% reduction of all wildlife on the planet since 1970. Mm-hmm. I read that article and I said, oh, that's too bad. It was in a newspaper. Oh, that's too bad. And I turned the page to the next article and I'm reading, because I was on a plane. And when I landed and I walked out to the parking lot and got in my car to drive home, I'm on the freeway and I almost hit the brakes. Like, wait a minute. 57% of everything is gone? We've killed off more than half of everything in 46 years? Wait a minute. That's the bumblebees. That's the Baltimore Orioles. That's the red robins. That's the hummingbirds. That's the polar bears. That's the cheetahs. The average is 57% of everything is gone. And those percentages are worse around fresh water. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Well, they're drinking the water. And if you were drinking the water coming out of the streams by your house, you'd get cancer much quicker, and you would be unable to reproduce in higher percentages, just like the animals now, which is what's wiping them out. We're wiping out everything that lives on the planet, everything. 57% of all wildlife is the average. So where's it coming from? It's the toxic chemicals. And you've heard me say this before. This next statistic is not an exaggeration. It comes from the Journal of Pediatrics, that it's 250 pounds of toxic chemicals per day per person in the US that are being dumped here right now. 250 pounds. That means for you and I, Ridgely, that's 500 pounds of toxic chemicals per day. If we include our wives in that, that's 1,000 pounds of toxic chemicals every single day. That's 20 50-pound bags. 20, that's this whole room, stacked floor to ceiling. 20 50-pound bags every day for the four of us. That is, it's hard to fathom that. But that's what we all are being exposed to right now, all of us. And that's what's killing the animals, all the wildlife, not just the mammals, but the insects, you know, the birds, the hummingbirds, the bees, and then the bees can't fertilize the orchards, and then the fruit doesn't grow, and you know, the whole cascade effect that occurs. So, okay, we're exposed to all of these chemicals. What do I do about it? I mean, it's so overwhelming. What the heck do I do? How do I even get started? But that's why we're talking about this subject, is that it's the toxic chemicals that we're being exposed to that's in our food, but also in our environment that we're being exposed to every single day. That is the primary gasoline on the fire that's igniting this autoimmune cascade that eventually turns into autoimmune disease. And remember, if you pull at a chain, it always breaks at the weakest link. It's at one end, the middle, the other end. It's your heart, your brain, your liver, your kidneys, your skin, your hormones, wherever your genetic weak link is. You pull on the chain, that's where it's going to break. And the pull on the chain is the gasoline on the fire, the inflammation that's responding to all of this environmental stuff we're being exposed to. So one person gets Hashimoto's thyroid disease from exposure to bisphenol A. The next person is a child whose mom had high levels of bisphenol A, the same chemical, and the child is born and their brain doesn't work very well. And I'll talk about the studies that have shown that. The next person has polycystic ovaries from too much bisphenol A. So it just depends on where the weak link in the chain is as to where it manifests. And although the symptoms are really important to address to feel better, the mechanism is what's critically important to understand. Because you take one more thing, you take a drug for the symptoms and you feel better, but you're still throwing gasoline on the fire. It's going to manifest at the next weak link in your chain. So we want to feel better. Absolutely, we want to feel better. You do what you have to feel better so you can function, take care of your family, go to work and all that. But you got to ask the question, where the heck is all this coming from? How come I'm getting this? And that's what we want to talk about today.
Right. And we want to bring it down. So thank you for that introduction, Dr. Tomo. What we really want to do today is bring it down to the granular. I mean, let's talk about the coffee cup. Let's talk about the water bottle. Let's talk about Saran Wrap, things that so many people are used to on a daily basis using with no concept. Like you just said Saran Wrap, and I don't know if you saw me, but I kind of recalled. I'm like, maybe I've been doing that. Oh no, what's happening to me with Saran Wrap? I need to know this. Because conscious thinking people who are our people, the people that watch what we're taking to the world, they want to know so that they can make changes.
You know, Ridgely, I'm so grateful to be doing this with you because I'm the geek, you know, and I think, oh, I just laid out this whole beautiful thing that everyone's going to get, you know, because I'm like, you got to get this. And you said, no, wait a minute, man. Tell me about Saran Wrap. Right? So I so appreciate you. Thank you so much.
No, my pleasure. But that's what we got to do. We got to start at the granular. I mean, think about, here's what I do. So this is me. And I'm starting to think, oh my gosh, this is obviously a critical mistake that I'm making right now.
And you don't know that you're making that mistake. And I do the same thing, you know, like I take my glasses, you know, and I'm reading something, then once in a while I'll go like this while I'm doing it. And I'm chewing on the plastic. This is plastic. what that means is there's bisphenol A in here. And I'm chewing on it. And my saliva, which is a little bit acidic, is going to pull a little bit of the bisphenol A because it comes out really easily. You know, that there's so much that so let's start with this one chemical out of the 280,000 chemicals that have been identified in the environment. Let's start with this one, and that is bisphenol A.
Okay.
BPA. BPA. BPA is a chemical that softens plastic. Now, it happens to be very soluble, meaning it comes out of whatever the container is. You know, it comes out of the frame of your glasses pretty easily. It comes out of Saran Wrap. Saran Wrap is plastic, and it's soft plastic, so it comes out of the Saran Wrap very easily. And bisphenol A, the Journal of the American Medical Association tells us, molecule for molecule, it's as potent as the most potent estrogen. There's 3 different types of estrogens in our body. The most potent one is called estradiol. And molecule for molecule, BPA is as potent as estradiol. What does that mean? I've talked before about receptor sites. A receptor site is a catcher's mitt. Sits on the outside of the cell facing the bloodstream, you know. Your bloodstream's just a highway. There's just a whole bunch of stuff on the highway. They're all going in the same direction, but there's no lanes of traffic. Everything's just bouncing around in there, going the same direction. Receptor sites, hormones, as they're traveling in the bloodstream, they get pulled by an electromagnetic, almost like a magnet, right into the receptor site for that hormone. So thyroid receptor sites sitting on the outside of the cell facing the bloodstream, thyroid hormone goes by and it goes right into the thyroid receptor site. Thyroid hormone will not go into an estrogen receptor site. It will not go into an insulin receptor site. It goes into the thyroid receptor sites. Insulin goes into insulin receptor sites. Estrogen goes into estrogen receptor sites. The problem is there are chemicals that we're exposed to in our environment, both in our food, added to the food, and in the environment around us, in the air and the water, like bisphenol A, that they get pulled into specific receptor sites. Bisphenol A gets pulled into an estrogen receptor site, and it sits there. Now, I'm going to back up. So if we take estrogen going into an estrogen receptor site, so the pitcher throws the ball to the catcher, it comes into the estrogen receptor site. What it does is it opens the cell, and the estrogen can go right into the cell to do whatever it's going to do. Then the cell closes. A receptor site is a doorway. You know, it's the locked door. And so the hormone comes in and it unlocks the lock. And so the cell opens and the hormone goes in. That's how they work, right? Mm-hmm. But there are chemicals in our environment that have an attraction to specific receptor sites. And BPA is one that goes right into estrogen receptor sites. And it sits there. It doesn't open the door. It sits there. And the result of it sitting there is that when estrogen goes by, it can't get in because the catcher has 3 baseballs in his mitt, and the pitcher throws a fastball and it just bounces out because the receptor site is all full of this toxic chemical, right? Mm-hmm. So now you've got this estrogen functional problem, the person's body, and this is men and women. In men, it manifests, for example, as low testosterone. You know, the studies tell us now today that men today have 1/3 the testosterone their grandfathers had. We're becoming much more feminized, guys, much more feminized because of the toxic chemicals that are in our bodies inhibiting the production of testosterone. And this is just one of them. For women, ovarian cysts, uterine fibroids, cancers, breast cancer, brain dysfunction because there are estrogen receptor sites in the brain. All of these symptom patterns have been associated with levels of bisphenol A that are getting in your bloodstream. So you've got this BPA that's getting in there, and it blocks up your receptor sites. So we want to reduce our levels of BPA exposure. I'm going to come back to all that now. We have to get our levels down. How do you get your levels down? Well, you know, you go to the local coffee shop and you get your coffee and you walk out with your coffee, and you know, the steam from the hot coffee comes up to the underside of the lid. The lid is soft plastic. What do you think's in the lid? So the steam comes up to the underside, it condenses, and it drips back down into the coffee full of bisphenol A. Then you put the coffee cup up to your lips, and the hot liquid is hitting the underside of the lid now, and it funnels down into the opening. You're getting more bisphenol A. So when you're drinking your coffee, you get bisphenol A. When we're at seminars, this happened a couple of times where, you know, I'm sitting there and I've got a cup of tea or something, you know, that I stopped at the coffee shop in the hotel before I walked into the convention room. And Dr. Bojdani would walk up to me and just reach over and take the lid off and say, Tom. And he had to do that twice to me until I learned. Now I order my hot tea from the coffee shop, and I take the lid off and I say, pour out just a little bit, would you please? And so it's not full to the top. Thanks for filling up, but just pour out a little bit. So when I walk with it, it doesn't bounce around and come out and, you know, burn my hand or anything like that. And you just get the lid off of it. Don't use the lid.
And I heard one thing before we go on from there. I heard that there are some coffee shops that have moved away from using BPA, and yet, unfortunately, what you're sharing is that the replacement, I heard, is just as bad, if not worse.
Yeah, the replacement chemical is BSA to soften the plastic, and it's more potent a toxin than BPA. There's just not been a lot of talk about it yet because it's fairly new on the market compared to BPA. So, you know, the industry is still doing the same thing. They say, oh, well, we won't use BPA anymore. We'll use this one. It's a little cheaper and it's more effective. And now let's market that we're BPA free. And they're using BSA. So it's just, it's overwhelming. So what do? You go to the coffee shop with your stainless steel mug and you say, fill it up, please. When I travel on an airplane, you know, I'm drinking as I'm on my way to the airport, have my coffee or my tea. And when I'm about to go through TSA, I pour it out so the thing's empty. And then when I get through the security, the TSA security on the other side, I go to the coffee shop. Can I have a green tea, please? And they put the green tea in here, and then I fly with the green tea. So you just get yourself 2 or 3 of these, stainless steel ones, and you start using them whenever you remember. And eventually you'll remember all the time. So and that's, you know, what
I found. One thing that's really cool, I want to point out to everybody watching or listening, that actually it may also save you money, because I've done this now. I started doing this since I learned this from you, Dr. Tom, and I carry my steel mug and I walk into even like a gas station or something like that, and you get a cup of fresh coffee and they say, oh, you had your own mug? Oh, it's only 95 cents.
Yeah, it's like a small. They charge you for a small.
Yeah, and they charge me less money, so I save a couple of pennies, which is nice. But obviously, the more important thing is I'm protecting my health from BPA or BSA at that point.
Right.
Now, tell me about Saran Wrap that I've been using my whole life.
Me too.
My whole life.
Unfortunately, you know, in the immunology journals now for the last few years, they've been publishing on this. You wrap a piece of meat that's left over from dinner in Saran Wrap and put it in the refrigerator, the next day, that meat's loaded with BPA. Oh. It's measurable with BPA. It's not only heat that allows it to transfer, even cold. It's the acidity of the food that will pull it out. So stop using Saran Wrap. Just don't use it up, throw it out. Throw it out. And I use wax paper. Now, there may be something wrong with wax paper, I don't know. Or parchment paper, and you just use that. Oh, but it doesn't stick as well. That's true. So in your drawer with your silverware, you've got a little container that's got a bunch of rubber bands, and you put the parchment paper around your leftover food in a bowl, and you put a rubber band on it, and it's in the refrigerator, right? Or you get glass storage containers, like the Pyrex kind of things. You just get glass ones with glass, not glass with plastic lids. Glass with glass lids, because you don't want the plastic. You don't want the exposure to the plastic. It gets in your food. Well, what about baby bottles? That's a big problem. That's a really big problem.
Mm.
And then parents are heating the baby bottle. You know, they're putting it in a microwave, which is just, oh, God awful. If you're a scientist and you just cringe when you think of that. They just published a study 3 weeks ago or so. And what they've shown is that mothers that have measurable levels, and almost everyone does now, measurable levels of BPA in their bloodstream during pregnancy, the fetus, there's a really important part of the brain called the hypothalamus. Think of a police station, an individual police precinct station. There's the captain of the precinct. He's in charge of everything that happens in that police station. He gives directions to the desk sergeant, who gives directions to each of the officers where they're going to patrol today. That's the hypothalamus to the pituitary, to the organs, to the thyroid, the adrenals, the liver, the reproductive system. Hypothalamus to pituitary to all of your organs. So the very famous one that a lot of doctors study is called HPA, hypothalamus pituitary adrenals, to handle the stress of life. So the big kahuna determinant of how we respond to stress of life is the hypothalamus. Study that I just read shows that when mom has measurable levels of BPA in her blood during pregnancy, baby's hypothalamus is not developing the myelin, I call it the Saran Wrap, around the nerves, the insulation around the nerves in the hypothalamus. They're not developing the myelin protective coating in the hypothalamus the way unexposed fetuses are. What does that mean? Well, it means that area of the brain is not going to work as well as it's genetically supposed to. I mean, this is such new information. We don't know what that means 20 years from now. It's not good. It's not good. And there's so much. Listen, we have 1 million children a year in the US now diagnosed with autism. When I came out in practice, it was 1 child out of every 4,850 something in 1980, 1 out of every 4,850. Now, the CDC tells us by the year 2026, that's 9 years from now, 2026, it'll be 1 boy and 2 will be on the autism spectrum. Not 1 out of every 4,800. We've got to wake up to what we're doing. The convenience of the lifestyle that we have to be willing to go through a transition period away from the convenience of what we've grown up doing, like Saran Wrap and Tupperware containers and all of that. We have to be willing to be inconvenienced for a little while so we reduce our exposures to this stuff. And you'll learn the habits that make a big difference.
So let's talk about that for a second, because you mentioned something. As a matter of fact, I'm sitting here with my piece of paper, and I had written down a note to myself that says Tupperware. Yeah. And so it's not just the Saran Wrap. It's not just the top of the glass container. It's every plastic Tupperware container that you have in the. I'm sure that of all the people listening or watching right now, they're all thinking, I can see the drawer where my Tupperware stuff is right now. And what you're saying is the only place that belongs is in the trash.
I believe that Tupperware has addressed the BPA issue. They're using something else, but it's still all these chemicals that leach into the food. So, I don't want to go after any one company or anything, but storage containers in general. You want to use glass storage containers. And they're easy to get. Miles Kimball is an online, catalog company. They sell all these different kinds of little glass things. They're not expensive, little storage containers, and you get them different sizes and shapes, and just get the ones with glass lids, not plastic lids.
Now, Tom, quick question for you. I saw you holding up that steel mug that you had right there next to you.
Yeah.
Doesn't that have a plastic lid on it?
Mea culpa, mea maxima culpa. You're absolutely right. I never thought of that before.
Right? I mean,
God, you're right. Oh, time to look for an alternative.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just that simple. Even that one is guilty.
Right. You're right. You're right.
Now, what about rubber? I mean, what about the rubber? Like my steel, the steel cup that I have has a little rubber sealing thing that kind of seals it. What about that rubber? What's the situation with that?
There are people. There are people who have a sensitivity to different substances. Rubber is in the family of chemicals that are in rubber that's like latex. A latex sensitivity is nasty for some people, and it's a strong contributor to some autoimmune diseases. It's the gasoline on the fire. So I've not seen studies saying that rubber is a huge concern, but for some people it is the concern. It's the main one for them. But I don't think that's a majority of the people. It's not one that's come across my screen as being critically important to address right away. The plastics are critically important to address right away.
So, okay. So then what we're looking for is something with a glass top. I have one of those glass water bottles that had a big kind of rubber thing on the outside so that even if you drop it, it doesn't break. Right. And I just got to make sure that all around the top, it's also that there's no plastic. They didn't sneak any plastic in on me near the top, right? Because that's what happens.
Right. I've got those glass water bottles too. I just got 2 more of them from Amazon, and they're all pure glass, rubber on the outside, and they have a metal screw lid on it, and so there's no rubber. It's all metal and glass.
We have lots of some of the stuff that's coming in. We have lots and lots of comments coming in through our feed. Lots of people talking about how much they enjoy what we're doing and appreciate it. But one of the questions that came in, I thought is important to answer here is this: is there anything? So, is it unhealthy if a bottle says BPA free? Should we be worried because of the BSA and other things?
There's not a lot of information yet on how much BSA leaches out, but it does. In my world, unfortunately, when I'm traveling, I drink a lot of water because I fly a lot, so I stay well hydrated. And there were a couple of companies that used to sell their water in glass bottles. They don't do that anymore. Their bottles look identical, but now they're in plastic. So I'm caught. You can't avoid all of it. So if I have a choice between 2 types of water, one says BPA free and the other one does not, I'll take the BPA free one, knowing that at this point is probably the lesser of the 2 evils.
Well, I know I've noticed recently, because I do this also, that most airports are now having a filtered water station. So if you have your glass water bottle with you, you can do what you were talking about, dump it out before you go through the TSA screening. And then once you're through to the other side of screening, then you go fill up your glass water bottle, and that
there you
works.
Go. And Ridgely, I just want to use as a demonstration, after your observation a minute ago, which I'd never thought of, I've taken the lid off, and I pour into my little cup. And so I've just taken the lid off, so I'm not getting that whatever exposure I was getting. So we just have to start thinking that way and do all the little baby steps that we can without being crazy fanatical, but just the little things that are not too hard to transition in our lives. And you'll find 6 months from now, you've cleaned up so much of the exposure just by taking the baby steps.
One of our one of our folks out there sends in a great contribution saying that Richard O'Clean Canteen makes good stainless steel beverage holders. So we'll pass that on to everybody out there.
Well, thank you.
Next thought we had. Now, this is interesting. How does a new bedroom set make you fat? I need to know this. I mean, that's like, okay, man, now we're going down another tangent, but we got to know.
Yeah. There are families of chemicals that you're exposed to in your bedroom. They're called isocyanates and flame retardants. These families of chemicals, like in the sheets, if they're not pure cotton sheets, and even if they are, some of them get soaked in this stuff, or the blankets, or the comforters on top of the bed, or the wood of the bed. If it's pressboard kind of wood, it's loaded with formaldehyde. And all of these, or the carpet on the floor, these these chemicals, the category is persistent organic pollutants, but these chemicals in the bedroom, they feed the bad bacteria in your gut. The good bacteria don't like them at all and get killed off, not completely, but they get reduced in numbers, and the bad bacteria increases in numbers. So I'm going to give you an example now. And so the undesirable bacteria, it's not really bad, but in high concentrations it's bad. It's called Firmicutes family of bacteria. And there's a balance between two families, Bacteroides and Firmicutes. Firmicutes is the bacteria that has a real emphasis, be efficient with your food, meaning hoard calories. Whatever you eat, hoard and store calories. That is one of the jobs of the Firmicutes family of bacteria. Here's the classic example, the Pima Indians, P-I-M-A. The Pima Indians are in the four corners of the Southwest US and down into Mexico. They've lived there for 1,000 years, 2,000 years, a long, long, long time. There's nothing that grows there. It's desert. How did this tribe survive in an area where you can't grow any food? Well, those that were efficient in storing calories from eating meats, from hunting, or little roots and cactus roots or whatever they would eat, those that were efficient in pulling the calories out of that, they survived and they reproduced. Those that were not efficient, they died off, malnourished and didn't have the energy and they died off. Now, the microbiome, the good bacteria, all the bacteria in your gut, the microbiome gets passed on through the mother to the baby. Mom is inoculating the fetus during the growth of the baby in utero. And when the baby is born coming down the vaginal canal, the microbiome in the canal has changed in the last month in preparation for baby coming through the passageway, and baby gets smothered in all of this bacteria, which gets in the eyes and the nose and the mouth and the ears, and it goes down into the gut. It's inoculating the baby with all this good bacteria. So baby gets some of it while still in utero, gets more during the birth process. That's how baby's microbiome is first set up. And it's 683 days before baby's microbiome is now fully established. But it starts off with mom and all that. So who's mom? Mom is one that survived and thrived, was able to reproduce as a Pima Indian in this area where there's not much food. So mom had a higher amount of Firmicutes bacteria in her gut, which says store energy, hoard calories, get everything you can out of what you're eating. And mom's body became efficient at storing calories. So over the generations, the Pima Indians had higher levels of Firmicutes and lower levels of Bacteroides, so they hoard a lot of calories. And they survived in that hostile environment of the four corners of the Southwest. Now let's move into the 1930s or 1940s. Now the Pima Indians, and it could have been earlier, I'm not sure of the history of that, but now they're living on reservations. And they're eating the food that the American government sends them, the canned food, and some of them have on food stamps, and they're buying the junk that everybody else is eating, like the potato chips and the pork rinds and all that garbage stuff that many of us grew up on, not knowing that it was the problem. But they've got the microbiome passed on from generation to generation to generation from mom that stores calories. So they're storing much more efficient at storing calories, hoarding calories, to where today 50% of Pima Indians are morbidly obese and have type 2 diabetes by the age of 35. 50% of them.
Unbelievable.
And it's their microbiome. It's not that they've got bad lifestyle habits, well, some of them maybe they do, but that's not it. It's the microbiome that was designed for that culture to survive and thrive in a hostile environment. So their genes are high Firmicutes, low Bacteroides.
So there's an analogy here that I just want to make sure that I'm not missing nor exaggerating. Is that then not a perfect example on an exaggerated basis of what is currently happening to all of us?
Yes.
Especially
Yes.
those that are not paying attention.
Yes, because what we were just talking about, the toxic chemicals in the bedroom feed Firmicutes. So you're getting higher levels of Firmicutes, lower levels of Bacteroides. Firmicutes hoard calories. This is the person that moves into a new house or they buy a new bedroom set, and 2 years later they've gained 20 pounds or 25 pounds and nothing's changed in their life, and they wonder, well, they got lazy, what's wrong? I'm exercising the way I used to, but now they've got a spare tire on their midsection that they're packing now. And it's because of the toxic chemicals in minute dosages outgassing from their environment where they're spending 6-8 hours a night every single night. They're breathing this stuff in. It feeds the Firmicutes bacteria, suppresses the good bacteria, the preferential Bacteroides, and the result is you've got the obesity microbiome, and you start getting more weight. You gain weight.
Mm-hmm. That explains it. I've been sleeping more, and that's why I sort of. No, I'm just kidding. All right. So, wow. So, just kind of bringing this all back around to kind of wrap this all up again. Again, I remember last time we spoke, Dr. Tom, where you were sharing, hey, it's a little piece over here, and then you gain another little piece over here, and then you get a piece over here, and you begin to see how this piece interacts with this piece, and this one with this one, and slowly but surely, you put it all together. So we're saying the same thing, right? We're saying, okay, go pay attention, throw your Saran Wrap out, go downstairs, go into your kitchen or around the corner from where you are right now, and take a look. What's in there that needs to go? Gut yourself a couple of metal containers and start paying attention without being overly ridiculous.
Right, right. Don't be crazy about it, but get new sleeping equipment, meaning cotton sheets, get organic cotton sheets, get organic blankets, cotton blankets, just start looking for things that you like and that fit your preference and your lifestyle and the colors and all of that. But just be aware and start moving in that direction. Base hits win the ball game, not home runs. Base hits win the ball game. And as you do this, and that's why we're doing this, and if you guys like this, my impression is you do, we're just going to keep doing this. Just 1 point, a couple of points every once in a while to give you guys so that you can just start applying some of these principles, and you'll see 6 months from now, you've made a shift. And oh my gosh, my belt's a notch tighter. My waist is getting slimmer, and I haven't changed my diet at all. Wow. Well, I did change my bedroom set 3 months ago. I wonder if that had anything to do with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
You'll start seeing those kinds of things.
Okay, so I got to ask, and this is one of those, oh man, I don't even want to ask because I'm scared of the answer already. So for all of us who love to drink sparkling water, and it happens to show up in a metal can, or anything else that's in a metal can, what about that one?
The metal cans are lined with BPA.
Okay, so
and the sparkling water is more acidic, and so it leaches out more of those toxic chemicals out of the can.
So is there any other way to get sparkling water besides the metal cans that okay when it's coming in a bottle, I guess? Okay.
Well, if for someone that really likes sparkling water, if they really do, I know that craft cocktail specialists, people that are really into that trade, there's some kind of a device you can get, and you can make sparkling water out of your pure water. You can make it. And so if you invest, I don't know what they cost, maybe it's a couple $100, but if it's going to last you for 5 years or 10 years, and you like to drink it regularly, then you know that you're getting the purest sparkling water possible. Depending on the raw material you use, assuming you get good clean water, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So Sodastream, one of them is called Sodastream. I know it's about $100, right?
Okay, good. I don't know. I just knew there are those types of things.
Oh man, I gotta go down and clean out half of my kitchen already here. Tom, I want to say on behalf of all of us that are out there watching, again, encouraging all of you to please leave your comments, leave your personal experiences, and most importantly, your questions, so that we can do everything that we can to help you out. And you heard it from the source. The plastics, the Saran Wraps, the non-organic stuff in the bedroom, it's all got to go. And please, if you have a small child or are considering having children, take another look or listen to this so that you can really absorb how important this is for your baby as you bring
Can I say one more about that?
Sure.
If you talk to your pediatrician about this, most of them just don't have a clue about it. No, your baby's fine. Well, what about the myelin around its hypothalamus? And they'll just look at you like, what? What? Do I have BPA in my blood in my pregnancy? Do I have it? But what about the study about the myelin? They don't have an answer. And unfortunately, this is the toxic world we live in. These subtle little insults are the gasoline on the fire that accumulates over time, that throws you on the autoimmune spectrum, and wherever the weak link is in your chain is, eventually you get the autoimmune disease. So your doctors are trained to look at this endpoint when you have a disease and help you to identify as early as possible, but they don't understand the spectrum, and they've not been trained to think about what's throwing gasoline on the fire. No, Saran Wrap's fine for you. No, it's not. No, it's just read the studies. Just read the studies on this stuff. So you have to understand that the people you ask advice from have expertise in particular areas, and they don't have expertise in everything. They just don't.
That's right. And that's why, Dr. Tom, we have you. So thank you so very much again for this incredibly valuable information. Everybody, leave your comments, leave your thoughts, leave your questions, and we look forward to speaking to you again very soon on some more stuff that I know you need to know. Thanks so much.